It's like if you were breaking out of prison and you finally, it's like that Shawshank Redemption part, where he's out in the rain and all this stuff. It's like that, but most people go, oh wait, I don't know what to expect here, so I'm going to go crawl back into the
Yes.
sewer line and go back.
I'd like to welcome Michelle Mundy to the show. Michelle, welcome. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I stumbled upon your content on TikTok and am really excited to talk about corporate America and being an entrepreneur. So, with all that
Awesome.
being said, are you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Can you give us a little bit of background about what your story, a little snippet of your story, and what motivated you to start creating that content?
Yeah, I worked in corporate America, obviously. So I worked in the tech world for about almost 7 years. And then I worked at an agency working with the tech world. So all the big brands. And I had always felt like I wanted to do my own thing, but I had no idea what that was going to be. And it was a very frustrating position to be in, knowing that I wanted this sort of model of my life, but I didn't know how to get there. I didn't know what it was going to be. And so I at after the pandemic, basically, I just had this moment of reflection. I had, a very, very great 6-figure salary. I had an entire department that was working under me, but I could not shake this feeling that I wanted a different way of working, that I had more autonomy and I had more flexibility and the ability to, kind of execute my own dreams versus working for someone else and on their dreams. So anyways, after the pandemic, I think all of us like kind of just took a moment of reflection, and I certainly did. I had gone through a breakup, and I sort of very drastically changed my whole life overnight. And one of the things that I did do is quit my job, become a freelance business consultant for agencies. And in doing that, I just sort of realized almost instantly how amazing. Sorry, my pug's at the door. Can I? Or it'll be cute. So I just basically decided that I felt very alone, and I felt like I had to figure out how to start my own business and piecemeal it together. I had been a business operations sort of expert. And so I was very aware of how to operate a business, how to track your profitability, all this stuff. But, I had a hard time figuring out how to put all those pieces together into like a very small business. And so that paired with just kind of feeling alone, like I was used to having peers and I was used to having people to like bounce ideas off of and collaborate. I got the idea for Solo, and Solo is really my baby. So I'm still doing my business consulting. So I'm still a freelancer, but I'm also building this community of freelancers who all basically work together to kickstart and operate their businesses under one umbrella. So I'm just trying to help as many people as I can get out of the 9 to 5 grind. And so I started, to answer your question, I started doing social media in an attempt to tell my story, but also connect with my audience and kind of, it sounds silly, but like spread the word, like, create kind of a movement. If you notice, my content over time has become more and more about really trying to change the way people look at success and change the way people look at their careers.
Yeah, I noticed one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation with you is because we both have a similar thread of wanting to revolutionize how people view the world. And you mentioned 9 to 5, and I am curious if you would riff a little bit on, the 9 to 5, maybe a little bit about the history of the 9 to 5 and why it's not ideal today.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love this question. Yeah, a lot of people don't know where the 40-hour work week came from, where these 8 hours a day came from. But really, it started during the Industrial Revolution. So, and it started out of necessity because businesses were taking advantage of people. That's really how it started. So before that, the main like career, we'll call it, was like farming and various different things that were very seasonal based. And so people didn't have sort of these restricted timeframes because it was all about like if you picked your field, right? I'm not a farmer, so clearly any farmers listening are like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. If you picked your field or harvested your crops, that's what it is. If you harvested your crops, once it's done, it's done. It's done. So
Mm.
there's nothing else to harvest. So it's about the idea of, and then there would be seasons where literally there's nothing to do, right? And so I always thought that that concept was actually better suited for now than this 40-hour work week. So
Mhm.
then Industrial Revolution started. This is when all the factories started, mass like manufacturing and things like that became very popular. And so that kind of started to snowball into this world of time is money, right? And so, the longer people work, the more they produce kind of thing. And
Mm.
so what happened is for about 100 years that people were completely taken advantage of, like working 100-hour weeks, crazy child labor
Yeah.
issues and stuff like that. So obviously there were a ton of protests and labor unions became something out of necessity at that point. And that's really how they started putting some restrictions on, okay, well, people can't work beyond this amount of hours, or they're required to have breaks and things like that. And then eventually Henry Ford really famously created, they always say he created the 40-hour work week. He technically didn't. It was a guy named Robert Owen, I think, or something like that. I did a video on this. And basically he had noticed that productivity didn't change with his people who were building cars and all this stuff from a 48-hour work week. So people were working 6 days a week to 40 hours. And so because his business was so, popping at the time or whatever, he basically was kind of an influencer on then creating this 40-hour work week. But if I was to riff on why this matters and why that history of that, is so important to know, is because remember that before that, productivity was measured by the work you were actually doing. And when the work was done, you were done, right? And I'm trying to figure out, and this is a huge part of my content recently, especially, is kind of provoking a conversation more than anything about how can we change how we measure productivity, or standardize how we measure productivity in a way that sort of doesn't require us to sit at a desk 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, when potentially, I would say most of the time, like there are hours in a day that just aren't necessary. And a lot of people might just be sitting around or, burning the time just because they're meant to be sitting there. And it's astonishing to me when you think about how the 40-hour work week really became a thing in like the 40s and 50s, basically, is when it actually became sort of like in law and things like that.
Yeah.
There have been insane advancements in technology since then. I mean, insane. And it's just getting more insane. And the way we work and the how efficient we work has completely changed, but no one has looked at changing what the 40-hour work week looks like, and maybe potentially changing the way we sort of measure people's, I always say productivity. I wish I'd come up with a different word because I don't feel like that's very sexy, but
Yeah.
really changing the way people, measure their production. So
Yeah.
that's my
Well,
tangent on that.
I love how you brought in that it was created in the 40s and 50s, because I mean, life then was so different than life now, right? Back then, I mean, I wasn't alive, so I don't have firsthand
Neither was I.
experience, but it was primarily men in the workforce and women were at home.
Mhm.
And so today, that's a whole different ballgame
Yeah.
from what it was back then. And I think, from my own point of view, that is something that really interested me around masculine and feminine energy, and how masculine energy is more singular, they're more directive, and feminine energy is circular. What are your thoughts on how our own uniqueness and our own rhythms fit
Mhm.
into, a schedule, or don't fit into a schedule?
Yeah. Yeah. I just did a video on that. I think this was last week, but yeah, the other thing that people have to consider is that people have different circadian rhythms throughout the day.
Mhm.
So I am more productive in the morning. I try to do all my meetings in the morning because I'm going to be friendlier. you know, I'm thinking the most clear. I definitely have like a slump that happens every afternoon for myself, and it's because I wake up relatively early and it's just natural, right?
Mhm.
Everyone has their own sort of schedule like that. And with remote work now and our ability to kind of work anywhere, and with the fact that we work, a lot of people work globally or at least nationwide with different time zones, the thought that people are required to all be available at the exact same time every single day is also just kind of silly to me at this point. And I think
Mhm.
we need to start having these kind of conversations about the fact that, do we all have to, with all of these like messaging capabilities and being able to kind of stay available, like let's say ad hoc, why do we all have to be available at these certain times when a lot of people aren't even productive during that window of hours? Like I'm most productive from like probably 8 a.m. to about noon, but
Mhm.
I'm not productive in the, I never have been like it.
Yeah.
I get a major slump and then I usually get like this burst of energy around like 6, 7. But I think really making an effort to be a little bit more flexible with, I guess, as like a society, with regards to the fact that everyone is unique, everyone is different, and
Mhm.
having our working schedule, or I like to say work model, fit around that, because technology can allow us to do that. It's there.
Yes.
You're forcing
Mhm.
these people sometimes to, and I won't go on a too much of a tangent with this, but you're forcing these people to come into an office when we've already proven that we can all
Yes.
do this remotely, in a lot of cases more efficiently and
Yeah.
better.
Mhm.
And you're forcing them to do it by having them sometimes take hour commutes. How exhausting is that? They have to like
Yeah.
fully get ready, they have to drive all the way home. It's all just a waste of your personal time to accommodate these businesses that are making people do it. So anyways, that's
Yeah.
my tangent on that. But I do believe strongly that, some people, I probably work like 6 hours a day, but I work every single day.
Yeah.
I'm also I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm just trying to build something. But I think a lot of people can do their job in 3, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, and call it a day. And they should be paid the same amount because they're producing the same amount. So I don't.
So my
Yeah.
entire commute was 70 miles each way. And
Wow.
here in Phoenix, that took 2 hours. You touched on something that really like hit something for me. So I lost my job in December, and I took that as guidance that it was time for me to be, my solo entrepreneur and
Mhm.
do what I love. But also in the process, I was actually looking for jobs.
Mhm.
And one thing that I noticed was, now, a couple of years after the pandemic, when I did interview for hybrid, when I told them I needed 3 days, the days that I have my kids, I needed 3 days to work at home, I didn't get called back. They
Okay.
said it was hybrid. And then they said, we'd really like to have you in the office more. That was the feedback that I got.
I have a theory with a lot of this, and I don't think I'm wrong here. It's not, I don't think with a lot of these businesses, it's about control. I think a lot of people think it is. I think it's about real estate. I think it's about these big, huge
Totally agree
corporations
with you.
bought a lot of land and bought and
Mhm.
invested in building massive campuses and all this stuff that no one wants to go to now. And I think it's more about that than it is anything. So my first thought, I don't know who this this business is, but my first thought is there is pressure from up top to get people in this office because, you know, we need to justify the investment that we've made in these physical facilities and locations. I can't think of any other reason that these businesses would be pushing it. So my initial thought is first that. The other thing, I think that we are still in this transitional period right now where I don't think whoever you interviewed with knows what to do with someone like you. You know what I mean? Like, I know it sounds silly, but like, you know, I don't think that they know what to do with someone who's going to hold their ground, who's coming to the table, knows that they're the prize to be won here, and is going to say, I have my children these days of the week, and the only way I'd even take this job is to do that. And I think that initially it rubs people the wrong way, probably, I'm guessing, making assumptions here. But really, that's exactly how you should be approaching this. Like, this is your life. And if you're spending 2-3 hours a day just trying to take kids from school and daycare and getting to work and all this stuff, like, it's not worth your time, and you know the value that you bring. So really, in my eyes, it's their loss. So I don't know, if I was to go back in time and if I interviewed someone and they held strong to that like that, I'd be like, damn, I kind of want to know, I kind of want to work with this person, because look at the confidence that they bring to the table. And that says a lot about who they are as a person. And I think more and more people need to approach interviewing like that. This is a interview of the company too. And you are a valuable asset that they want to also win. And if they're just going to find some, you know, hamster that's down with just running on that wheel and whatever, because they're willing to come in the office every day or whatever, then that's the kind of business they're going to have. That's the kind of worker they're going to have. And it's their loss. So that's my thought on that.
I love that. So, there's so many threads that I can pull apart on that one. But you also mentioned flexible schedules. I actually made a video about work-life balance, and then I saw your video about work-life balance. So let's talk about work-life balance. Work-life balance, it's not actually a balance.
Yeah, no, it's not.
How could it be? So I'd love for you to, you know, speak on that for a little bit.
Yeah, I want to do this. I want to make it be just a very simple graphic, but it's like this idea, and I don't think it exists. Maybe I'll do it before this post, but you know, it's like, it would be sort of a work-life balance like thing, and then it would cross out balance and work, because really, this is just life. We're all just living here. There is no balancing anything, you know, across the board, like, and especially with the stuff that we have gone through, the trauma that we have experienced as a generation, we are in a place at this point where we won't tolerate it, and we don't have to. And so as far as I'm concerned, us putting our life before anything else is so important. And I just wish everyone would prioritize that. But in order to prioritize that, we have to really change the perspective, because a lot of us have been very deeply conditioned to believe that the 40-hour work week is the way to go. Like, you know, I know several people have been laid off recently. It's immediately go find another job, you know, and it's just like, take a beat, process what you just had a loss, like, process it, find your own life. I'm not going to even use the word balance, but find your own sort of like peace and like sort of release with like what you've just experienced. Not only losing the job, but the job itself was I'm gonna venture to guess maybe toxic as well. And so you have to take that time to take care of yourself. Don't just jump back into the machine, you know, take a minute,
Yeah.
really see what you value in your own personal life. What do you love to do? What are you good at? You know, ask your
Yeah.
friends, ask your family, like, and how can you commoditize that in some way? And
Mhm.
I wish more people who are experiencing getting laid off right now would do that instead. Give
Yeah.
yourself 30, 60 days if you can. I know not everyone is able to do that, but if you can,
Yeah.
just experience your own life for a minute and explore different things and then make the decision. But don't do it out of desperation, and certainly don't do it because you think you have to, because society has told us that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't,
I
yeah.
love how much there is to talk about right here. So, okay. So first I want to say, yes, we have been so conditioned. Like that's the evidence of the conditioning that's out there. And because of it, I actually created a coaching program called 5 Weeks to Freedom. It's actually for anyone who wants to, have more freedom in their life, but it
Yeah,
was designed specifically around either wanting to leave your job or if you had just lost it, because
I love
five
that.
weeks is enough time to find that conditioning, heal
Yes.
that conditioning. I believe that our thoughts create our reality. And so if we believe that our paycheck has to come from someone else, if we believe that we have to be in the system, we're going to continuously create that. So I
Yeah.
love how you brought that into the conversation. Another thing I wanted to touch on, you'd mentioned before how you probably work every day.
Yeah.
And
I
I
do work
noticed
every day. Yeah.
I do too. In the 9 to 5 or in my schedule, I didn't have the time I needed to even take care of all of my needs plus my kids' needs
Yeah.
within this 7 day
Yeah.
stretch of time.
Yeah. I mean, as human beings, we're spiritual beings and we
Mhm.
are living things on this earth. And yet we have been, I don't want to get too conspiracy theorists because I don't think it's a conspiracy personally, but I think it's reality. But
Mhm.
we have been sort of imprisoned by society's rules, essentially. And they have made it so that we have very, very little space to
Mhm.
actually live or
Mhm.
process anything that's actually going on. So we
Mhm.
just keep going. We keep going. We keep going. And there will be moments of crashing. I would have moments of, just I don't care telling people this. I'd have moments of panic.
Mhm.
I'd have these moments where I just would cry, like
Mhm.
sobbing, because I felt like this is what is expected of me as an adult. And I will have to grind like this the rest of my life until I retire, which I have a whole theory on retiring now, but, and that I'm forced into this. And yeah, I'm not surprised that you would just have this moment of crashing every week, because what you're doing goes against everything a human being should be doing. You
Yeah.
that schedule, I really do believe is is an imprisonment of society.
Yeah.
And we have to, in order to be the people who break away from it, we have to be the pioneers here,
Mhm.
right now. And that's really what I'm seeing. Like these people in my boot camp, I'm like, we're the pioneers. We're paving the way right now to make this the new normal.
Yeah.
And we're going against what the voices in our head that tell us, oh, if you go and work for yourself, how are you going to pay for insurance? How all the stuff that I hear all the time, right? Like, how are you going to
Yep.
pay for taxes? How are you going to do this? Blah, blah, blah. It's like if you were breaking out of prison and you finally, it's like that Shawshank Redemption part, where he's out in the rain and all this stuff. It's like that, but most people go, oh wait, I don't know what to expect here, so I'm going to go crawl back into the
Yes.
sewer line and go back. And that's what,
Yeah.
to me, when someone says like, I hated what I was doing, but I need to go find another job, that's what basically is happening in my eyes. You've just
Yeah.
broken out of prison. You've just
Yeah.
been given this gift of freedom. the unknown, yes, it's scary as hell, and you're just going to crawl right back into that sewer line and go right back into your prison cell. And it just,
Yeah.
it honestly breaks my heart every time I talk to someone right now
Yeah.
that goes, oh, I'm just going to take this job. And I'm just like, but we had all these conversations, and like,
Yeah.
there is another way. I promise we'll get through this together. We just have to find a way. So
Yes. And
anyways,
that's exactly why I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I think that if more people realize that they have choices, this has been such the norm, right? We've all contributed to this matrix that we've created around the workforce and 9 to 5. And, but because we've created this together, we can use our minds to create a new reality.
exactly. And it takes a few brave souls right now to just take a leap of faith, right? I'm not making as much money as I did as an executive at a creative agency, but I am a million times happier. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't go back for millions of dollars. I wouldn't do it, because the freedom, the ability for me to own my own life is so rewarding in and of itself. It's better than any paycheck I could ever be handed.
Yeah.
And so I just think that people need to see the proof. And so that's, for the brave people who are working with me and taking my boot camp, and like, we're getting businesses running for them. Like, they really are like so brave to go against the system, because a lot of people are not willing to do it right now. And they're going to be the ones that are motivation for everyone else when they succeed, of seeing, okay, there is another way. I'm seeing other people succeed in this. And that's how change happens, right? It doesn't happen overnight. So it's going to take some time. I understand that not everyone is, I don't have kids. I have a pug. Like I told you, I drastically changed my life about a year ago, pretty strongly. And as a result, I'm in a very privileged situation of being able to kind of do whatever I want, and I understand that people have families, they have kids, they have responsibilities, they have mortgages and all this stuff. I just want to challenge them to see if there's another way, to tackle life, even though you do have those responsibilities. We're not doing away with everything, right?
Yeah.
But
I'd love to talk about that for a minute, because I do have 3 kids and I am a single mother. What I want most for my kids is for them to follow their passion. And I'm not going to speak for anyone else's experience, but I did do a little bit of recruiting. And when I would interview clients, I recruited for accounting operations. When I would interview candidates, they would tell me that accounting was their passion. And I just felt like, maybe, but I really don't think accounting is anyone's passion, right?
I don't know. I've met some people who really like Excel spreadsheets and like the formulas and stuff, but yes, I agree. I don't think a lot of people would say that, but
right. So we get caught up. We can make ourselves believe that what we're doing for this company is our passion, when really our spirit is calling us to do something else.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, and me included in this, like, I was a film major. I really wanted to do music videos. That was like, I loved music. As a kid, I was like singing Whitney Houston and Celine Dion in my room with my mic and my speaker. And that was like my thing. And when you graduate high school, when you go to college, if you go to college, which I have a whole other feeling about that, but you really get like, it's almost like over time, as you get older and older, you're like, your passions and what truly makes you happy just get knocked down by society over time. I think that it starts at a young age of, what do you want to do when you grow up? And everyone's, I want to be a singer, I want to be a singer. And it's all cute. It's all cute until I'm about 15, 16. And now people are like, okay, but Michelle, what do you really want to do though? Like, because
Right.
you're going to need to make a decision soon because college is starting and all this stuff. And you start
Mhm.
getting all this pressure to do something realistic. I
Yeah.
remember when I was in college, I had someone, an older person, basically, I said, I want to be a director. I want to write films. I had all this, and I'm exploring a little bit that you can see that a little bit in TikTok,
Yeah.
like, right.
Yeah.
I love writing. I love voiceovers with like montages and stuff like that. Like,
Mhm.
and I always remember her just being, yeah, but that, like, what's your plan B?
Yeah.
And I'm always just like, and it really messed me up. Like, I remember
Yeah.
bawling my eyes out from it because I was like, why do I have to compromise? Why?
Yeah.
Why is this, And so I went through college, I did some cool projects, but all along I was just like, after this is done, I interviewed to be a PA at like a local news station, and they were going to pay me like nothing.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
just like, I can't do that. And so what did I do? I went and got a job at a big corporation tech company that paid me 2-3 times what they were going to pay me. And so
Yeah.
I fell into project management because of
Yeah.
that. Is it my
Yeah.
passion? No, but
Yeah.
society kind of made me do that.
Mhm.
And now I feel a passion about what I'm doing in the sense of I just want to wake everyone up as much as I possibly can.
Yes.
And that's what drives me. But I get to use, up until a few years ago, I never got to use. Well, TikTok I've only been doing for like 5-6 months. Like,
Mhm.
but oh my gosh, like these skills, these things that I love, like putting music
Yes.
to it and writing these voiceover scripts, like these are all like things that I really love.
Yes.
And now I can see that, like, me and you are talking because of that. Like,
I
look
know.
at like the thing that I'm passionate about, the thing that I love doing is actually, kind of, it is making me money. It is like making it so that I can make a living doing it. So
Yeah.
anyways, there is a survey that I have, that maybe I'll give you the link to it so you can put it with
Mhm.
this, but there's a survey that I created that basically asks you a series of questions of like, what kind of things did you like to do as a kid? What does your family say you're really good at? What do your friends say you're really good at? Like, what are aspects of your existing experience that you do enjoy? And it
Mhm.
kind of starts to nail down what type of business. Like, it's meant to be a very high level. So you'll see something like maybe business and finance is like, a
Yeah.
category that is, maybe somebody who's like an accountant or something
Yes.
might actually fit in that category, but
Yeah.
at least it's exploring all the aspects of yourself and not necessarily just what's your work experience and go do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll include that too, because it is like a great exercise to kind of see like, well, what type of business could I build from sort of these places of what I enjoy doing actually, and like utilizing some of those passions I may have had as a kid before I was conditioned not to believe that that's an option anymore.
Yeah. So years and years and years ago, I had a coach that told me, she said, if you wouldn't do it for free, it's prostitution. And at the time, I was like, I can't
Wow.
even consider that, because there's nothing I would do for free. Like, I would never go to a job for free. Like, they
Yeah.
have to pay me a lot of money. And I didn't get the essence of what she was telling me until, I would say, the past 3 or 4 years. I've literally used what you're talking about with my clients to find their inner child. We would go through the inner child work. What did you love
Yeah.
to do as a kid? What would you find yourself doing where, time would just pass?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that bring the TikTok and what you're doing with TikTok into this space, because I would sit in my garage with my friends and pretend that they were Mariah Carey, Celine Dion, and I would
Yes.
interview them as if I was Oprah. And
See, you found your calling. You were meant to be a
right,
podcaster.
right. I love that you brought that in, because my intention in this podcast is for people to hear something, grab some information that resonates, and return to the truth of
Yeah.
who they are. And what better place than when you were a kid and you felt as free as you could
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
express yourself in the ways that felt most authentic.
Yeah.
So,
And that kind of like full circle here, but like that kind of goes into like what we talked about also with balance and not having any space in your day.
mhm,
Um, you know, they want us to stay sort of not in that state. They want us to forget about that childhood dream or that essence of who we really are, and they keep
yeah,
us trapped in a routine schedule that we can't break out of, so that we
yeah,
don't have those moments of reflection. Because if
uh-huh,
we truly did, if everyone listening to this like sat down and really just was like, you know, what do I actually want? Like, what do, like,
yeah,
what did I want before everyone told me I couldn't do that,
mhm,
then you'd start to really realize, holy crap, like, I'm not happy,
yeah,
or I need to be doing something like that, because I did this TikTok a really long time ago, but I had this moment like about a year ago where I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot I was creative. That's what my
yeah,
brain said. I totally forgot, because I was such an operations person. I was such a project
mhm,
manager, such a process person.
mhm,
And then all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, like I'm actually pretty good at design and I'm
yeah,
pretty good at writing.
yeah,
And like I'm a creative person. And actually I think I'm way more creative than I am analytical. Like,
mhm,
and yet I forgot.
yeah,
How interesting it took me, all this time to suddenly be like, oh yeah.
yeah. And in the workforce, my strong suits are talking to people, interviewing, having conversations. I did recruiting, I did sales, I did affiliate marketing. And my job description wasn't just that. Like I had to pay attention to numbers, I had to pay attention to reports, and those were never anything that I was interested in or strong in.
Yeah.
However, my performance reflected all of it rather than just the things that I was really good at. And
Yeah.
I think that just like dim your spirit a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
And even while you feel, if you're doing something that is in alignment with who you are in a company and you do feel some confidence or some light from the actual things you're performing, the other side of it can cause you to feel not so happy about it.
Right. Yeah. And a lot, especially in corporate America, they want you to be in a box. They
Mhm,
segregate you into these categories, right? You're in finance, you're a creative, you're a
mhm,
project manager, and they purposely don't want you to, you'll hear like stay in your lane, right?
right.
And like but we're such faceted human
Yes.
beings with tons of talents. And I used to get so annoyed at working at this agency because I was a producer, right? So I was like the
Mhm,
project manager. I was in charge of the budget, the timeline, the
yeah.
task management, all this like not like traditionally creative. There's ways of being creative about it, to be fair. But and then I'd be working with these creative directors and designers and motion artists and all this stuff, and I'd have ideas, but I would not speak because I felt like
Wasn't
that's
your
not my
role.
place. That's
Yeah.
not the lane I'm in. That's not the
Right.
box I've been put in.
Hmm.
And that I think is why I had, after 6, 8 months of not working for someone else, I had that realization about a year ago of,
Yeah.
oh my God, like I'm actually really creative and I totally
Hmm.
have not been utilizing this part of me at all,
Yeah.
since college,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. I love this metaphor that's coming into my mind right now. When you talk about, 6 to 8 months after being out of the corporate job,
Yeah.
I can look at some of it like as in an abusive relationship. Like when you're so far out, 5, 6 months, 7 months, a year out, and you haven't had that constant energy surrounding you,
Yeah.
telling you what you need to be, what you should be doing,
Yeah.
dictating your whole life, you start to see a lot more about yourself and about your
Yeah.
desires. And when someone does get laid off or they lose their job, they just start right away looking for a new job,
Mhm.
and they don't give themselves that time to really reconnect with the truth of who
Yeah.
they are and what it is that they actually find joy in doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I would, and I understand, like, because you know, I've said stuff like this on social media, and a lot of the responses come with like, not everyone has that privilege, and I do
Mhm.
acknowledge that for sure. I'm
Yeah.
hoping that enough people sort of join this movement, whether it be with me
Yes.
or anyone else. Honestly, I don't care. It's just about the movement itself,
Mhm.
that they are able to see a way out, even no matter what their circumstances might be.
Me too. I work with people on their minds and their beliefs of needing. A lot of people, what I find is, and this was me, this is how I found it. I believed that I had to have a job in order to receive a paycheck.
Yeah.
And that's just a simple belief that creates our reality. And
Yeah.
so, if there's a willingness to open up and change your beliefs, I think there's a willingness to move forward. But I love
Yeah.
how you just said you wanted people to join you. I noticed. I remember watching one video of yours, and I felt like sharing it and screaming, "Yeah, let's do it!" Where it's like, one way to do this is for everyone to just say "fuck it" and quit.
Yeah.
A
It's
whole new ripple
irresponsible.
effect. I
I,
know.
I don't, I don't necessarily, but what I, not to use, it's funny because one of my series that I did called A Millennial's Dream was actually meant to be a little bit of a tongue in cheek to a Shaw. I not to bring. I don't know why I'm bringing up Shawshank again, but
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite movies, and
Mm.
there's like this whole like voiceover aspect of it. And I did feel like working in corporate America felt like I was in prison. Like it
Yeah.
really did feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be dramatic about it. It
Yeah.
just did.
Yeah.
And I equate paychecks now to being them delivering food to my prison cell,
Yeah.
or giving me gym time, or whatever they call it when you you know when they give you like a little bit of time to
Mhm.
be human and to live a little
Right.
bit in prison,
Right.
right? But
Yeah.
it's just enough to keep me alive. It's
Yeah.
just enough to keep me there,
Yeah.
but I am still in prison,
Yeah.
and I still do not have control over my own life. And that honestly is what I think the 40-hour work week, 9 to 5, working for someone else looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's dramatic, and I know that, but that's how I feel about it
I
personally.
don't think it is dramatic. And in fact, when I lost my job, I'm a recovered addict. I recovered from an eating disorder 15 years ago, and I'll have 10
Wow.
years sober from drugs and alcohol in December. So I'm at
Congratulations. Wow.
9.5 years. 9.5 years, yeah, today. And so, like, what I noticed when I lost my job was I literally was addicted to the paycheck
Yeah.
every 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And I noticed going through a withdrawal around it. And what's happening for me now is I, I get paid every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I literally, my bank account goes up every day, and I might spend a little bit of money, but by the end of the day, there's more in it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that I like this better. But I
Yeah.
didn't know that was possible because I was so used to just every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, like the pellet, that they give the rats to.
Exactly. It is that, and it's like, you have so much more uh control over your finances when you work for yourself. Cause like I have a whole thing where you should be doing value-based pricing, which means you don't charge hourly. Do not charging hourly as a freelancer is
Mhm.
the same thing as the pellet being thrown in. Like
Yeah,
it gives them the control. It's
yeah,
about what value are you bringing to this organization?
mhm,
Are they going to make more money? Are they going to be more efficient? Are you working for a client of theirs, and
yeah,
understanding like, okay, well, based off that, you should be giving me this flat rate of this every
mhm,
week, every month, or just a flat fee of this. And in doing that, I don't think people realize how much more money they can actually be making. It's
yeah.
it's astonishing. Yeah. Well, and I also want to just acknowledge, like, I know that at the beginning of this conversation, I said, I'm not making as much money. I'm not making as much money, but
Mm-mm.
I'm working far less to
Uh-huh.
make plenty of money to have me living the life I want to live. And,
Yeah.
so that's another thing you just have to take into consideration. And part of my boot camp is, opening up the spreadsheets and seeing how much do you need to take home to survive. Let's figure out where your break even point lives, and then we make sure that we're charging accordingly. I think a lot of people, when they start freelancing or start their own business, don't do that exercise, and you got to do that in order to know that you're charging enough to cover all your costs of doing business, to cover your personal expenses, to cover taxes and all that. And if you do, then you're going to be just fine. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
it's better than a paycheck. I promise.
Yeah. Now I have some questions for you,
Okay.
because the intention is, to really deliver information that people can take away from this conversation if they don't decide to join your boot camp, or if they are not working with me. So what would be some few basic tips for the person who may be recognizing this in themselves,
Yeah.
that they're not happy, but they do feel stuck? What would you suggest they start looking at? What would
Yeah.
be their first couple of action steps?
And I think it's a combination of like the tangible things that I sort of teach and the more spiritual things and mindset things you sort of teach. And I think it's a
Uh-huh.
combination of both,
For
honestly.
sure.
I think that to the first step that I took that I would recommend to anyone is really making sure that whether you have to go and take a solo vacation, or um, um, just do whatever you can, maybe go for a long walk, like do something where you are literally away from everything,
Yeah.
family, business, and
Yeah.
really try to connect with yourself in a way that helps you see what you want your life to look like. Like, one of the best advices I ever got from a friend of mine was, go for a walk and really look at what you want your life to look like. Don't think about the job. That's going
Hmm.
to come in a minute.
Yeah.
Think about what you want your life to look like. Like, for me,
Hmm.
I want to travel. I want to, I'm somebody who's kind of a minimalist. I don't want a lot of possessions. I want to be able to like kind of get up and go with my pug whenever I want to, like
Yeah.
that's the world I want to live. That brings me happiness. I love that freedom.
Mhm.
Um, so figure out what you want your future to look like. What do you want and live a day in a life in that world for a minute and really think about what you want. Then what comes of that? Okay, well, if I'm working, what does that look like? Might be remote. It might
Mhm.
be only working a couple hours a day. It might be, what am I actually doing? Like, what am I doing that's actually bringing me happiness?
Mhm.
And through that, you start to identify a potential outcome of a decision you
Mhm.
haven't made yet. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so to me, it's really understanding that future vision first. And then
Mhm.
step two is like, okay, what what is the like tangible things around that? Like, maybe I want kids. So like, are there kids there?
Mhm.
Maybe I want a partner that I love. Like, what are the things that are like, this is very project managey, but what are the deliverables at the end of this project, right? Like,
Right.
what's the actual thing? And then
Mhm.
from there, you can actually start to step three being, okay, well, if these are the things that I need, like I want to work remote, I want to do this, I want to start to figure out the path, the roadmap to getting there. And it's almost like taking my existing skill sets of business operations and project management and applying it to somebody's
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
life vision. And I think one thing I will say, if someone is in a you brought this up, I totally believe this too, that some businesses is like a toxic relationship that you're in
Mhm.
that can be very, very damaging to a person's spirit, to a
Mhm.
person's life in general. And so
Mhm.
I think if you are in any situation like that, like if you're like over it and really looking to make a change, which I know some people might be, so I just want to like
Yeah.
have a message for that. can I lift and shift my existing role into a freelance position? Meaning, because that's what I did. That's how I got out of my 9 to 5, is I basically took the skills I'm doing now and went from being a full-time employee to being a freelancer and converted it into a business that way. Was it my dream job? No. Did it make me money? Yes. Did it get me out of my situation and give me some sort of breathing room to really explore what I want? Absolutely. And so a lot of people don't think of this, but you might want to just ask, it costs a business less money to hire you as a contractor. If you are a billable, like service-based company. So I want to caveat with that, but like, for example, an agency, if you are strictly billable, which means anytime you're working with a company, then you are being paid for essentially, and they're doing nothing but making a profit on you, then I would explore, if your work looks like that, if you know that's the business model you're working within and you're not happy, my first step would go to my boss and be like, I would like to be a freelancer. I'd like to explore options of basically just converting my job into a contract position. And you might be surprised how many businesses, especially in this economy right now, will be down to do that. So I'm giving 2 options. One's the more like long-term, really look at your life, really strategically make that move. The other is if you just need to get out of a situation, like do that.
Yeah, I love it. I love both, like simultaneously. I do a lot of work with my clients on visualizing and implanting new images into their subconscious, because that is really what will create a new reality. But I love what you said about, taking an inventory of your current skill set and what you're currently doing on a daily basis, and picking 1 or 2 or even more of those things and turning it into freelancer. There are so many. I mean, there's an abundance of
hundreds, if not thousands,
to hire, freelancers for a small project like video editing or writing or coding, or I mean, so many things.
There's so many. There's so many things. And I know that AI is freaking people out. So I also want to acknowledge that. But I've been just telling people, like, try to see the other side of the coin here, because it also makes it like people like you and I who are owning our own business work smarter, and allows us to wear multiple hats that maybe aren't necessarily like a really great skill set for us that we can automate in some way. So, we also have to think about the future. Like, what does in doing that, I almost like, because one of the things you said just made me think of this, like in that sort of future vision, also look at the world. What's the world going to look like? Where are we going with technology right now? So something else to consider as well.
And I hope that, through this conversation, people have, anyone listening has been able to connect a little bit more to their hearts, because that's the world I'm wanting to encourage and create, is one where we're following our heart's desire. And I know we've been chatting for a while. I have a couple of questions that I ask all my guests. So the first question that I'd like to ask before we end, what would you say the purpose of life is?
Oh, wow. God, that's a big question. I think the older I get and the more I sort of am evolving as a person, I think we're all supposed to learn something about ourselves or be challenged with something that we have to overcome. And I don't know who's making those choices. I don't know what's driving that, but I do think that, like, for example, for me, I was put here to focus on helping others, of taking my ideas and bringing in creation, like bringing things to fruition. Because like right out of the womb, that's kind of all I cared about. I never wanted kids. I never, I don't even really like do anything beyond working. Like but I'm happy, and I love doing that. So I think we're all put here to some extent to learn something about ourselves, to be challenged, and to evolve in some way. I think that's the goals, that we're supposed to evolve in some way and be by the time we're, on our deathbed, we're supposed to be a more evolved person than we were when we showed up.
Mhm. I love that answer. Uh, and the last question is, if you could take one piece of wisdom that you have now and give it to your younger self, what would that one piece of wisdom be?
Oh my gosh. I have my own like visualization that I do often. When I was 7, I ran away, ran away from home, which was just really, I lived in this beautiful forest area, when I was a young child, and it was my secret hiding spot, which my mom could see from the kitchen window. So it wasn't all that secret. Anyways, I remember at that time feeling frustrated with my parents and like not happy, right? And my visualization, anytime somebody asks me to like, what would you tell your younger self, is that moment in my life of I picture me sitting in that secret hiding spot while she ate her survival one piece of bologna, and just connecting with that person. And so I think that what I would tell them is that there's a huge part of me in the lesson in my life where I isolated myself really, really bad. And that was even just me running away, like that was an isolation, and I think I was really, really scared of people most of my life. I was
Mhm.
very scared. And I wish I could tell her, don't be afraid of people. Like, don't be afraid of connecting. Don't be afraid of putting yourself out there, because they're, relationships are going to be such an important part of your life. And it's all that really matters in the end. So prioritize it.
Mhm.
Because if there was anything that I regret the most in my life, it's losing contact with people who were really important to me. It's not nourishing relationships that really, really meant something to me. And so maybe in doing that, like she would have changed that part of herself. But I'm trying really hard now, now that I have the space, now that I feel
Yeah.
like I can breathe, I
Mhm.
am reconnecting with people from my past and things like that,
Yeah.
trying to undo some of the maybe like broken relationships that I have. So
Mhm.
I would say that
Yeah.
is not what I expected to say, but that is what I'm going to roll with.
Yeah, I love that. I personally believe that all of our lives exist inside of relationships,
Yeah.
whether it's relationships with people or relationships to our situation or things. So
Or
I thought it
ourselves.
was, beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially the relationship to ourselves.
Right.
So thank you so much. Is
Yeah.
there anything else you'd like to add before we end the conversation?
No, this was great. I loved this. I feel like, yeah, I feel like I really loved the direction this went in, and yeah, I'm feeling motivated.
Yeah,
So thank you for
awesome.
asking me to do this.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining. How do people get a hold of you? We will include that. I'll include that in the description. But how do people get a hold of you if they want to?
You can visit my website, solo entrepreneur, spell it right. It's a hard word to spell.com.
Link will be below.
Yeah. And or like visit my TikToks. My TikToks, I try to post as regularly as possible. It's just my name, Michelle_Mundy. And yeah, I mean, I am a very, speaking of relationships, I'm a very open book with people. Like if you are struggling right now and you want just to strategize with someone or just talk it out with someone, like I have a link in my link tree. If you go to my TikTok, that you can book a one-on-one. It's completely free. It's just, I'm trying to meet as many people as I possibly can. It's part of my own sort of journey of figuring out how I can influence and going back to changing the world, like I have to meet people. I have to know where they're at in order to do that. So I'm just trying to help as many people as I possibly can. So yeah, those are a couple of options there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle, for joining me
Thank
today.
you.
I'm so honored to have had this conversation with you, and we'll see you again soon.
All right. Thank you.
I would like to personally thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this episode, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that you never miss a beat. And if you really resonated with this content, please share it with all of your friends so that collectively we can expand our consciousness. Have a very blessed week.